I developed reality science as a method, as a way to understand some of the mysteries, some of the esoteric questions I had in my own research, in my own life. At the same time, I was also experiencing all kinds of new sensations, from hallucinations, from visions, from dreams and nightmares, from tingling in the body, to numbness in the body, to feeling energized and awakened, and then also feeling fatigue. And while some of this could have been explained using biological medicine, many of the things could not be explained. And then my research coincided with some of the things I was experiencing. Now, much later, many years later, from when I was experiencing it, the disease known as Lyme disease, lupus, and other autoimmune diseases, they started to become more prevalent. So my work started 12 years ago. And 12 years ago, I had many of the symptoms of these autoimmune diseases, way before any of these things were being considered. Even things like fibromyalgia, even things like, the rise of depression and mood disorders. All of this, as I was doing my research, and I was becoming more aware of a better understanding of the true nature of reality, the technological nature, and my association to that world, to that frequency, these things took on a different meaning. So let's talk about reality science and these autoimmune diseases, such as lupus and Lyme disease. Now, I'm going to take a technological approach. And my technological approach suggests that not all Lyme disease is caused by a tick. And not all autoimmune diseases have a biological cure. In fact, these diseases have no cure. And let me preface this additionally by saying I have no medical training. I'm not a scientist. I'm not prescribing a cure. What I'd like to give you is a new perspective, from the perspective of a reality science. So let's review Lyme disease and autoimmune disease symptoms, because they share a lot. Interestingly enough, they share diseases. So even if you were bit by a tick, or you have lupus, or you have another autoimmune disease, they share symptoms, which is interesting because the causes should be all different. My suggestion is there's a similar cause, a technological cause. So let's review some of the stuff. Things like chronic fatigue, sleep disorder, you have trouble sleeping, sleep apnea, things like numbness in different parts of your body, mood disorder, mood swings, depression is very common, the dark feeling, a feeling of darkness. Some people may experience voices, hallucinations. There are pain in the body. You could feel a lot of pain. You might be taking pain medication. You might have more severe symptoms like arthritis, where your body starts to whirl. So those are some. You might have vision problems. You might have speech problems, that your speech is slurred, or it feels like you have something in your mouth. You don't have the same motivation as you had before. You lack that. You might have less sexual prowess, right? That could be a sexual dysfunction, impotence, and things of that nature. So it's quite a range of stuff, right? And all of this stuff is kind of mysterious because at times it flares up and at times it goes in remission. And that's what drives people crazy. It's a mysterious illness. And so you don't know if it's an illness because by the time you go to the doctor, the illness is gone. And then it will flare up, and then you might not want to leave your bed. You might not want to leave your house. So from a technological perspective, there's a thing called a multidimensional symbiote. A symbiote. And the symbiote can attach itself to your body, to your energetic field, to your aura. And the symbiote is called a symbiote because once it breaks the aura, it connects to your nervous system. And once it connects to your nervous system, it starts to gain access to everything, every part of your body. So, the symbiote is a technological device. It's a new phenomenon. I have been talking about symbiotes for at least the last 5 or 6 years. And I have a book on it called The Book of Symbiote Diseases. And I go into a lot more depths in the book. Again, this is highly theoretical because it hasn't been proven yet. Now, the symbiote is invisible, but you can feel it. And you know that it's there when you start to get these symptoms that have a mysterious origin. So for example, let's say you wake up in the morning and there's a numbness along your left arm. And let's say there's no rational explanation for it. You didn't sleep on the arm. There was no other explanation for it. You didn't bump it. Why is there a numbness? And why does that numbness kind of spread? It spreads to your body a little bit. Well, that fits the characteristic of a symbiote, that it attaches to a body part and it starts to weaken the body part. And because it works, it works at the neurological level. It works with the nerves. It works with the myelin. Because it's multidimensional, so it doesn't have to physically penetrate the skin. Because it's a higher frequency, it can go through the skin and attach itself to the immune system, the nervous system, and that could be the cause of some of the inflammation and the disruption in the immune system, which can cause a host of problems. So the numbness, again, numbness feeling is nerves. But if you have no physical damage and you have the other symptoms, you might suspect the symbiote. A very common is the symbiote will attack the head, and that's where you get the depression. That's where you get the memory problems, right? Because it's on your, it's like, you know, it's like let's say an octopus, right? A multidimensional octopus, an energetic being that is on your head. You like my head here? So if it attaches to this side of your head, you will have a headache on this side of the head. You might have memory problems. If it goes over here, you might have vision problems. If it attaches on your neck, you might have neck strain. You might have speech problem, right? If it attaches here, then you might have a sore throat. You might have speech. You might have breathing. Stuffed up nose, right? You feel like you always have the flu. Sometimes when these things attach, they start to drain your energy. They start to weaken your immune system. And so you might feel like you have a flu. If the symbiote is big enough, and if it attaches to you, you might have a fever, you might have a chronic fever, you might get chills. Some people who get attacked, because they have a strong defense, they might go through a fit of sneezing, right? They go achoo, 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 achoo. And that sometimes indicates that's not an allergy. Sometimes it's this symbiote trying to break through the aura, your field, your defense field, energy, and you're defending, achoo, achoo. And then once you stop, it's basically has now entered your atmosphere, right? It's like Earth has an atmosphere, and that once it breaks through, then it can gain access to your body. So if you have a sneezing fit, and later you have chills or fever, and then later or the next day you have some kind of episode or a seizure, you know, those are some of the indications, right? So if you have mood swings, if your health goes down, then you can see you might have been attacked. So I call it's a symbiote. Now there's small symbiotes, there's large symbiotes, and they feed off of your body, they feed off of your energy. They're typically dark, they're typically negative, they're typically I wouldn't say demonic, but they were dark, and they feed off of, they're very dark. So you go through a dark period sometimes. And what it does is it feeds off of you. So if you get angry and you start to worry or be afraid, it feeds off of those chemicals. It feeds off of, I think it feeds off of hormones. It feeds off of hormones. Certain hormones like, you know, estrogen and insulin, and testosterone, and it can deplete your body of these hormones. So if it depletes you of testosterone, then you feel, right, you might have impotence. If it depletes you of insulin, you might have, you know, diabetic symptoms. So it's very complicated. Now, we're not going to be able to cover this in a video. So the symbiote has many aspects, and depending on where it attaches will indicate, will show you the symptom, right? Or where you have the symptom, you know where it may be attached. Now the symbiote will eventually die off. It'll fall off. That's where you get this flare up, right? It attaches, it flares up, it feeds, and then it dies off. and then you have a remission. That period can be days, it can be a month, you know. It depends how much food there is. Now, some of the things the symbiotes don't like, they don't like positive people. So it's important to stay positive, because it will make you feel terrible, right? It'll make you feel negative, terrible, hopeless. My life is no good, right? It feeds off of negativity. So you stay positive. 2 is it doesn't like water, doesn't like seawater or fresh water. So if you go for a swim in the ocean or a lake and you feel better, that you may have detached from these things. Make sure you bathe daily. It doesn't like certain scents, essential oils, burning sage, spending time in nature, exercise, eating good food. They won't cure, but it will minimize the thing. So it attaches, there's a flare-up, it eventually dies off or detaches, and then there's a remission. Sometimes if it's a very large symbiote, it could cause a lot of health problems for a period of time. Now, the symbiote, I call it it's a technological symbiote. This stuff may not be readily understood. It may take a number of years before we really sort this out. But I feel it's my obligation to share what I've learned. And some people will understand, those that are looking for an answer, and some people will go through all the biological stuff. It's important to understand that there are these things around. They can attach. If they attach to your legs, you might have your legs might get tired, you might have swelling, edema, you might have bowel problems if it attaches to your lower abdomen, you might have irritable bowel, you might have diarrhea, bladder problems, where it attaches, right? Now, these things, there's no cure. They are there. And they like certain kinds of people. And that's the key for those still watching. They attach to certain kinds of people with a certain genetic disposition. So that's important, because the people who are immune don't have that genetic disposition, A. B, some people have so many of these symbiotes that their health is already compromised, that they're used to it, right? They've already been compromised. They were compromised years ago. And if they removed them, they would feel like a different person. But for people who are fighting, who are being attacked, you have a certain disposition of a genetic disposition, of a frequency disposition. But, and let's wrap it up here. The fact that you are being attacked or dealing with this illness also suggests that you have the capacity to either manage this problem or overcome it. Overcoming it may require a little bit more work. It's a bigger step, because you need to kind of really expand your mind. And I went through the process, so it's a very difficult process. Managing it, because you have that disposition, you have those characteristics, you shouldn't let it defeat you, because it will try to defeat you. The goal of the symbiote is to defeat you, is to shut you down. That's the goal. And then it feeds, and then it goes on to the next host, and then it feeds, it shuts people down. And sometimes these things just happen, sometimes people are targeted. And that's hard. That's a bigger discussion. So when I think about autoimmune diseases, and I'm not a doctor, I think symbiote. And the more we can understand it, the more we can have dedicate resources to finding a cure, or to make people aware, to be able to remove. You can remove these things. If you don't feed them, they will die off. And if you look after yourself, they will also fall off, and they'll come back. But you learn to manage it, right? And I think that's at this point, that's all we can do. If you want more information, there's other videos I did on symbiotes, and there's a book, the Book of Symbiote Diseases, and that gives you a little more depth. So there's another approach to these mysterious, incurable illnesses. So that's from the reality science point of view, a kind of creature can attach to different parts of your body or your nervous system and can cause you to have illness, or the symptoms of illness. And while you can take medicine and you can take injections and you can go see the doctor, the faster cure is to be aware of these things, and if you remove them, then your symptoms will go away.